Okay. So let's start this. So as already we have discussed that Azure data engineering. So as it's the bunch of the cloud services. Okay. So the following are the cloud services we have in this. So those are the first one we can say does ADF, that is called as the Azure Data Factory. And the next one we can say Azure Databricks. Okay. So the first one is what? Azure Data Factory. And the next one is the Azure Databricks. Okay. Then we have the Synapse, etc. So these are all the cloud services we have it. So now today we'll start with the first service that is called the Azure Data Factory. Okay. So when we talk about the Azure Data Factory, when we talk about the Azure Data Factory, that is in short we call it as what? ADF. Okay guys, so ADF in short we call it as what? ADF. In short we call it as what? ADF. That is Azure Data Factory. So in short we call it as what? ADF. So now, so to begin with the ADF, so first of all we will have to know the components of ADF. So let's see components of data factory in Azure. Components of data factory in Azure. Okay. So let's see the components of data factory in Azure. Okay. So without these components, we cannot move further. That means we must and should know the components here. So what are those? The first one we can say, guys, the first one we can say it as what? That is the components is nothing but pipeline. And the second one is nothing but we can say it as what? Linked services. And the third one we can say pipeline linked service. And then third one is what? Data sets. Okay. Pipeline linked service data sets, pipeline linked services data sets. And then we have what is that? Pipeline linked service data sets. And then we have what is that? Uh, mapping data flows. So we can say pipeline linked service data sets, mapping data flows. And then apart from the mapping data flows, we can say uh, activities. And the sixth one is the triggers. And the seventh one, we can say it as what? Integration. Integration runtime. In short, we call it as what? IR. In short, we call it as what? IR. In short, we call it as what? IR. So basically, these are the things we have it. So that means to start with the Azure Data Factory, we must and should know the following components. What is it? Pipeline, linked service, data sets, mapping data flows, activities, triggers, and integration runtime. Okay. So guys, before we see the data factory, what exactly the data factory and what are the components? So guys, we have to discuss all these components, 7 components. So before we start and before we discuss this, first of all, we must and should know the following. That is nothing but the basic of this whole process. As you know that guys, data. So data you know already. What is that? The data is nothing but information. So always the information whatever we receive it, guys, in the information whatever we receive it, that will be from where we receive it. There are many sources of getting the data. There are many source of getting the data. Not even one source. It can have, we can have what's that? Multiple sources. We can have what is that? Multiple sources from where we can expect the data. Okay. Multiple sources from where we can expect the data. Okay. The multiple sources from where we can expect the data. That is nothing but we can say we can get the data from the social networking sites. Okay, guys. So social networking sites. Social networking sites. Okay. We can get the data from the social networking sites, or we can get the data from the banking applications. We can get the data from the social networking sites, banking applications. Okay. We can get the data from the social networking sites, banking applications. And the next one, we can also get the data from the live streaming process. Live streaming process, so etc. Okay, live streaming process, or else we can say we can get the data from the IoT sensors. We can get the data from the IoT sensors, and apart from the IoT sensors, we can also get the data, whether it can be human generated, human and machine generated. Human and machine generated data. We can have what's it? Human or machine generated data. So these are all the sources we can have from where we can get the data, guys. Okay. These are all the sources from where we can, these are all the sources from where we can get the data. That is nothing but these are all the sources from where we can get the data here. Okay, guys. So, okay. So these are all the sources from where we can expect the data. That is called as what? Data or the information we get it from what? The following source of data. The following source of data. What is that? That is the social networking sites, banking applications, live streaming process, IoT sensors, human and machine generated data. Okay, these are all the sources of data. Then apart from this, we can also have many other sources. Okay, these are some of the sources which I have listed, guys. Then afterwards, the next one, we can say, guys, types of data. So the important one is what? Types of data we are going to deal here with. Types of data. What is that? Types of data. Okay. We can say it is what? Types of data. We can say what is that? Types of data. So what is the what are the types of data we have it? The data is basically classified into 3 categories. What is it? The first one is what? Structured data. And the second one, we can say it as what? Semi-structured data. And the third one, we can say it as what? Unstructured data. Unstructured data. Okay, we can say what? Structured data, semi-structured data, and as well as the unstructured data. These are the 3 varieties of data we can have it. Structured data means what? As already we know, the data which is recorded in the form of a table. That is in the form of what is it? The data which is recorded in the form of a table. That is in the form of what? Rows and columns. That is in the form of rows and columns. That is in the form of, what is it? Rows and columns. The data which is recorded in the form of rows and columns is called as what? Structured data. That is called as what? Structured data. And what about the semi-structured data? The semi-structured data is nothing but the data which is recorded, guys. The semi-structured data is nothing but the data which is recorded in the form of, what is that? In the form of what? JSON files, in the form of HTML files, in the form of JSON files, HTML files, XML files. These all are called as what? Semi-structured data. Okay, guys. These all are called as what? Semi-structured data. So the data which is recorded in the form of what? JSON, HTML, XML are referred as what? Semi-structured data. Okay. And then we have, what is it? Unstructured data. So what do you mean unstructured data? There is no structure of the data. Okay, guys, there is no structure. There will be no structure for the data here. There will be no structure for the data. There will be no structure for the data, such as, okay, such as there will be no structure for the data, such as, what is that? The photos in your mobile phone, you have it. Okay, the photos. Okay, and then you'll have the videos, photos, videos, chat history, photos, videos, chat history. Okay, photos, videos, chat history. Okay, and then apart from this photos, videos, chat history, you can also have voice notes. So these all are called as, what is that? These all are called as what? These are all called as what? Unstructured data. So here, as a data engineer, okay guys, so as a data engineer, as a data engineer, as a data engineer, we are going to deal with the following. What is that? We are going to deal with the following. What is that? Structured data, semi-structured data, and as well as the unstructured data. Okay, as a data engineer, we are going to deal with the following. What is it? Structured data, semi-structured data, and as well as the unstructured data. So we can deal with the, we will have to deal with the following kind of data, whether it can be the structured, semi-structured, structured, semi-structured, and as well as the unstructured. Structured, semi-structured, or as well as the unstructured. So we can have, what's it? Any kind of data we'll be having, will be dealing here with as a data engineer. As a data engineer. So to deal with this kind of a data, that is called as what? Structured, semi-structured, or the unstructured. Okay, structured, semi-structured, or the unstructured. So here, guys, we are going to use the service called, what is that? Azure Data Factory. We're going to use a service called, what is it, guys? First of all, we are going to use a service called what? Azure Data Factory. So here we are going to use the service. The service name is called as what? Azure Data Factory. That is called as what? ADF. That we call it here as what? ADF. That we call it as what? ADF. That's it. Okay, guys. That we call it as what? ADF. That is called as Azure Data Factory. That is called as what? Azure Data Factory. That's it. Okay. Now, guys, let's try to everyone. Okay, guys, so let's try to everyone see it here. The components. So basically, without the components, you cannot use the data factory. It is very mandatory and essential for the user to use these components. Without using the component, we cannot use the data factory here, guys. Okay. Without using the components, we cannot use the data factory here, guys. Okay. So what are those? These are all the one we have it. What is pipeline, linked service, data sets, mapping data flows, activities, triggers, integration, runtime. So these are all the, yes, guys, these are all what? These are all the components we have it. So without these components, we cannot use the data factory. Okay. So everyone is clear with this? Please respond.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let's start with the, yeah. So let's start with the data factory. So let's go ahead with the data factory components, you can say. And before that, let me clarify the thing that is nothing but data factory is basically a wizard base. It's a wizard based service. It is an wizard based service. That means the amount of coding, there will be no amount of coding. That means the amount of coding will be zero, guys. There will be no amount of coding. There will be no amount of coding here in the ADF. That is called as what? Azure Data Factory. So here we have the first one. What is that? You can say pipeline. So what do you mean by a pipeline? Let's try to see this. So basically, guys, pipeline is nothing but everyone. Pipeline is nothing but what? Everyone. Pipeline is nothing but what? Pipeline is nothing but a pipeline is nothing but, guys, everyone. The pipeline is nothing but, we can say, okay. The pipeline is nothing but, we can say, ah, um, it is used to carry the data from source to the target. It is used to carry the data from the source to the target. So guys, it is used to carry the data from the source to the target. Pipeline is nothing but what? It is used to carry the data. It's a component which carries the data from the source to the target. So what is that? You can say, guys, suppose here you have a source, everyone. Here you have a source. So here you have a source. And now, guys, from this source, you wanted to copy or you want to take the data to the target. So this data will be transferred. Can you see the data will be transferred from, can you see, source to the target? The data will be transferred from the source to the target by using, what is that? A component called what? Yes, guys, a component called what? Pipeline, which we call it as what? PL, pipeline, a shortcut. Okay. So without the pipeline, we cannot get the, yes, guys, without the pipeline, we cannot get the data here. The data is very, as I said, that is a pipeline is very essential one. Without that, there will be no, okay, there will be no, this one. Okay. So that is copying of the data, such as, for example, guys, so suppose we are staying in a residential house. We are staying in a residential house or an apartment where we get the water. From where we get the water? From the overhead tanks. Okay, guys. From the overhead tank, we get the water. Am I right? From the overhead tank, we get the water. From the overhead tank, we get the water. Okay, guys. From the overhead tank, we get the water. Hmm. So basically, from the overhead tank, we get the water. Uh, from the overhead tank, we get the water ultimately. But whereas, how do we get the water? That means the overhead tank is connected to your, okay, to your pipeline. That means to the that is to your tab. We get the water in the tab. Okay. So we, from the overhead tank, how do you get the water actually in your tab? For that, you have, what is that? A pipeline. So a pipeline is connecting the overhead tank and your tab. Am I right? The overhead tank and a tab is connected with the pipeline. Hence, you are able to get the water. Okay. So the same way here also, the pipeline is nothing but just like the pipeline I have given example here, or it carries the data here. Instead of carrying the water here, we carry what's the data. So data is used to, yes, it carries the data from the source to the target. It carries the data from the source to the target. Source to the target, guys. That's it. Okay. So it carries the data from the source to the target. That is called as what? Pipeline. That is called as what? Pipeline. So the pipeline is the first and very basic component we have it, which carries the data from the source to the target. And without the pipeline, you cannot take the data here. Okay, in ADF. Hmm. But in some guys, but in some other services such as we have the data bricks and all, we will be using the yes guys, we'll be using what's that notebook. We'll be using what's that notebook. We'll be using what notebook. Okay, we'll be using the notebook rather than using the pipeline. Anyways, right, let's okay fix up to the pipeline. So basically, whenever we have a pipeline is used to carry the data from the source to the target, from the source to the target. So without this, we cannot have the data transfer. That's it. Okay, guys. So anyways, rest of the things we will start it from tomorrow, guys. So tomorrow onwards, we will start this one and we'll see even the practicals on this. So everyone make sure we join at the 7 a.m. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm ending the session now. Bye-bye.
Hi, Samir, 1 minute. So
Hmm.
where I can get the recordings of this ADF?
Recordings, they will share it. You just do one thing now. Write a
Yeah.
message. I will
Hmm.
share it with the DurgaSoft. They will get you. Okay.
Okay.
They'll add you in this group.
Okay, right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.